Yo, what's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of In the Heyday. I'm your host, Oliver Hayes, and I'm here giving my instant reactions to the Colorado Buffaloes' first loss of the season, a 91-86 loss to the Colorado State Rams. I was at Moby Arena, and usually as you guys know, I film my instant reactions podcast at the arena after the game, but with this being the weird away game that is still in state, I decided to take the hour-long drive back and record my instant reactions pod here at my house. So I've had a little more time to think about things. Usually I just come straight out of the presser and just record my hot and ready thoughts right away, but yeah, this one, hopefully it's a little bit more cohesive just because I had a little more time to think about it. But either way, quickly recapping this game, Colorado State playing at home in Moby Arena. They entered this game with three guys averaging over 14 points per game, averaging nearly 20 assists per game, and the Rams entered this contest shooting a nation-leading 45% from beyond the arc on 26 attempts per game, meaning that they shoot the heck out of the ball, not only by getting up shots, but by making them as well. And the Buffs knew that. And from the very get-go, as Josh Passarelli hit 8 threes in this contest, CSU's first field goal was a Josh Passarelli 3. As he went on to hit the 8, like I said, he had a game-high 26 points. He led Colorado State's offense as they made 18 of their 35 three-point looks in this contest, which ultimately made the difference in this game because the Buffs, their offense was not cold at all. They shot 61.3% from the field, if you would believe it. That is insanely hot for any team. But whenever you give up 18 three-point makes on the other side of the floor, it is hard to compete. And the Buffs, they with those two things, with the polar opposite performances on the opposite ends of the floor, this game was close. But with the Rams making as many three-point looks as they did in Moby Arena at home, they were in control for most of this contest, led for 30 minutes of this game, and had a large lead of 13 points early in the second. Colorado was able to go on a huge 20-4 run midway through the second half, forcing a bunch of turnovers and forcing a few missed shots from CSU over a brief few-minute period to storm back and take a quick 4-point lead that the teams then battled over across the final 7 minutes or so before Colorado State ultimately pulled it out thanks to their three-point shooting and overall execution. But yeah, if you can't tell, the three-point shooting from the Rams made the difference in this contest. And yeah, Josh Passarelli, he was the one who lit it up for Colorado State the most with his 8 threes. Like I said, he had 26 points a game high, and it was very impressive because he was only shooting threes. He was 9 of 13 from the field, and 8 of 10 from beyond the arc, no free throws. And he didn't do it just off of catch and shoot shots. He hit a few step back, side steps. He's making some tough shots, and it wasn't only him that made some tough shots. The Rams, they were hitting tough shots across the board, whether it was Brandon Recksteiner or Jevin Muniz. He banked in a shot at the end of a shot clock late in the second half, and so there were some tough shots being thrown in by Colorado State. However, they had a lot of open looks, and they were able to capitalize on those open looks. And the fact that they got up 35 three-point attempts in general is kind of mind-boggling, because if you look at the two games that Colorado State lost this year to Denver and Virginia Tech, they did not get up more than 23-point attempts in that contest. And after going to practice this week and talking to Tad Boyle and Barrington Hargress, it was obvious to anybody who has followed college basketball and knows that Colorado State can shoot the three-point ball as well as they do. They know that, whether Colorado State is going to rely on the three-point line. And if they can't get up those shots, that is going to immensely hurt their offense, whether or not they're making them or not, if they simply can't shoot the three-point ball, because that's where they want to score. So the fact that CSU made tough shots is one thing, but the fact that CU allowed CSU to get as many three-point looks up was ultimately pretty mind-boggling, especially because Passarelli, CSU's best shooter, had 8 threes. He's the guy who put up the majority of those 3-pointers. Then you look down across the board and you see Brandon Rechsteiner goes 3 of 8 with his 3-point makes. Granted, some of those were tough, but still, he's a guy who makes some shots, and the Buffs were allowing him to get open. Kyle Jorgensen, he's along with Kerry Booth, he was a guy who was highlighted as a forward who can step out and hit the 3, whether it's the pick and pop, whether he's just open on the 3-point line, whatever it is, he can step out and hit that shot, and that was something that was highlighted during this contest. Yet, he attempts 6 threes and makes 3 of them, including a very important 3-pointer down the stretch of this contest that I wouldn't say sealed the deal, but put a decent end to the Buffs' late run in the second half. And so, I mean, overall, the team struggled just as far as following the scouting report, understanding personnel, getting a hand up on guys, and running certain players off the line. However, when you look at why that happened, I'd say it started with the guards. There was a fair amount of times where Colorado just simply getting beat off the dribble. And I'd say the 2 guys that had the most success beating Colorado Buffaloes off the dribble were Brandon Rechsteiner and Jevin Muniz. Rechsteiner, down the stretch of the first half, he was isolating Felix Casares, the Buffs' best on-ball defender, and he was able to get to work. I mean, he had 11 points and 6 assists, and a majority of those came in that first half. And then in the second half, as the Rams looked more towards Muniz, he was the guy who was then isolating down the stretch and creating offense for the Rams by beating his guys off the dribble. So it started with the guards who started with the CU's guards who were not able to keep guys in front. No matter whether it was Barrington Hargress, Isaiah Johnson, Felix Casares, Josiah Sanders, Jalen Holland, those guys, even though they were able to force 11 turnovers and turn those into points, were not necessarily staying in front of the guards. But you also look at the big men, specifically Elijah Malone, who only got 11 minutes in this contest. He could not keep up with Kyle Jorgensen, which was kind of expected, as we've seen, as the versatile bigs that Colorado has seen throughout this year have short rolled. They have pick and pop. They've done a variety of things after setting on ball screens, which has given the Buffs defense some trouble for a multitude of reasons, but specifically with Elijah Malone, who lacks the mobility to play a variety of ball screen coverages. And so Kyle Jorgensen started giving Elijah the work. And so when you have those 2 things going back and forth, whether or not it's a guard not being able to stop the ball, whether or not it's Elijah Malone and the other bigs not being as mobile in the ball screen coverage, those 2 things are already hard to deal with. With Colorado State, who runs a lot of action, they try and get back cuts, and they try and get easy shots. There's a lot of helping that needs to be done. And so when that stuff was happening and the Buffs were going to be off the dribble, or Jorgensen was rolling or popping or doing something that put stress on the defense, now the Buffs needed to help and they needed to rotate. And there were times where they rotated more impressively than I thought than they were in the beginning of the year. However, as Tad said on Friday, you can't overhelp, but that's exactly what the Buffs did, and the Rams got the ball moving. And even though they only finished with 15 assists, they were able to get the ball moving to find those 3-point looks that they were able to capitalize on. And it's no secret to kind of guess how a team generates 3-point looks, but it was, guy gets beat off the dribble, and then there's a kick out and the Buffs are scrambling, or pick and roll, on ball screen is set. Buffs need to overcompensate for Jorgensen and with whatever he's doing after the action, and all of a sudden that's creating a skip pass and one more's and whatever, the ball's flying around the arc, leading to a 3-point shot for the Rams. And so that was my big thing defensively. It was, is that across the board, no one was doing their jobs, whether it was on the ball, whether it was in the ball screen coverage, whether it was the communication, the rotation. But I'd say one of the big things was just that the Buffs didn't really have a way to take away Jorgensen and, pull him out of the game, especially with Kerry Booth Jr., another versatile big who's also able to shoot. Kerry Booth only finished with 6 points, took only 4 field goals. Only attempted 4 field goals. But the Buffs, they need to play another guy in that 5 spot. That could be versatile and take Jorgensen out of the game alongside Booth, who Ben got that guarded a lot of the contest. And so, I think personally, if I had to make one change, it would be in the front court. But overall, multitude of issues for Colorado. But the one thing they did do defensively is in that brief 20-4 run, they did they did up the pressure. They did try, and there's no point where the effort is lacking, where the motor is lacking. I'd say. I mean, Colorado State only had 6 offensive rebounds. I think that number should have been a little bit higher due to loose ball fouls. But, for the most part, like the Buffs, they're trying. And they forced the 11 turnovers. They forced 5 amid the 20-4 run in the second half, which helped give them a brief 4-point lead. So, the Buffs, they can fly around, they can cause some havoc, and they can turn that defense into offense, as we saw during that run. But, yeah, just a number of issues for the team to look at. And a very, just disappointing performance on the defensive side when everyone knows that Colorado State's going to get up shots, and they still are able to do so anyway and make them as well. But, I mean, offensively, I wouldn't say there's too much more to say because the offense has been just as productive as it's been through the first 8 games of the season. 36 of 58 from the field, 62.1% overall, 7 of 19 from beyond the arc, which equates to 36.8%. But 7 of 13 from the free throw line. That was one area where I didn't expect the Buffs to be lacking so heavily. Shot 4 less free throws than the Rams. And I mean, the Buffs, they scored 28 points inside. Alone McKaylee had a team-high 19 points. Bangott Dak had 12 points. Ranchik had 13 points. As I say, Johnson got downhill and was able to score a handful of points. But the Buffs were not able to draw fouls, and that was going to be a big thing in this contest, especially against CSU's front court, as I highlighted, which, their starting front court, they can space the floor. And, if they're dealing with foul trouble and they're not on the floor and those bench guys who can't shoot were in the game, then the Buffs were going to have an easier time containing CSU's offense, but they weren't able to draw fouls on the offensive side of the ball. And that was, a little surprising because, Elijah Malone, he's usually a force, but not only did he struggle defensively, he didn't necessarily have the offensive game that he maybe would have wanted. Personally, I didn't expect that because head coach Tad Boyle highlighted Elijah Malone as one of the only front court players in this contest who has a more unique skill set and unique frame, being the bigger, more post player traditional big that Elijah is. And while I don't remember exactly what Tad said in terms of what Malone would bring, I would have thought that with the force he is on the block, that he would have been able to draw fouls and maybe tire out Jorgensen, get a few more fouls on him, force him to the bench, and force Ali Faraka to go into his bench and play a different hand. But Malone, along with the rest of the Buffs, weren't able to draw free throws, and when they did, drawing 13, they only made 7 of them. Which, in a game where you give up 18 three-pointers made, you can't say that that's the difference. But in a 5-point ball game and you miss 6 free throws, it's hard to, to not look at that statistic and think about it. But beyond that, the Buffs, they, like I said, they 86 points on over 60% shooting from the field. That was just because they had so many different guys who could go and attack. I mean, it was majority through their interior, even though Elijah didn't have the greatest game. I talked about their points in the paint, 56 instead of 28. I don't know why I said 28 to begin with. But, like I said, Bangott Dak, Sebastian Ranchik, they had their fair showings in the paint, but Alone McKaylee off the bench with a team-high 19 points on 8 of 12 shooting from the field. I mean, he wasn't necessarily scoring off the dribble, but I mean, Colorado State didn't necessarily have an answer for him in the post, and the bigs were sagging off of him. And for a confident guy like McKaylee, who was not afraid to put up the ball, I mean, he was getting up 3-point looks and made 3 of his 5 3-point shots, which was huge for Colorado, who shot 7 of 19 from beyond the arc. And so the interior, it was the most impressive part of the offense. For me, it was something that everyone expected, as the Buffs have more interior options that are hard to contain for Colorado State. And so, this game was a lot of back and forth between Colorado scoring 2s and then CSU hitting 3s, and Colorado scoring 2s and then CSU hitting 3s. And obviously, with 3 being larger than 2, that the math, that works itself out, and that's part of the reason why Colorado State, took this contest. But you look outside of that, Isaiah Johnson, he had 17 points on 7-11 shooting. He once again showed up, in fearless fashion. Moby Arena was absolutely jumping, and Isaiah was still able to get to the rim, despite a lot of contact. A fairly physical game, despite the lack of fouls. He was able to get to the rim, knock down 2 threes. one in transition amid the big run, one to give the Buffs a brief 85-83 lead late in the contest. So, Isaiah was great again. You could look at some of the other freshmen, like Jalen Holland. He had 7 points on 3 of 4 shooting in just 15 minutes. Like the freshmen, they came up and they showed out. The offense as a whole showed out, as Colorado State didn't really have the defenders to match up one-on-one with the Buffs. The Colorado was also able to turn the 15 or the 11 Colorado State turnovers into 18 points in off of those giveaways. So nothing really to say about the offense. There may be points where the ball could have been moving a little bit more. And the Buffs could have had more than 13 assists, but when you only have 6 turnovers and you're scoring the ball at the way that they did, 86 points on 60% shooting from the field is, you can't complain about that. So, the offense had only, struggled with the foul drawing, and ultimately everything just kind of went back to the defense as, Colorado State was able to do what they do, and the Buffs, they tried to keep up with the Rams, who were running all over the floor. Whether it was Rex Steiner or Passarelli or even Booth or Jorgensen or Muniz or Butler or whoever, like these guys are nonstop running. It's like three Steph Currys on the court in terms of how much the guards are moving around Jorgensen and Booth. And so defensively just way too much for the Buffs to handle. And then I guess the last thing offensively that I was thinking about is just Alone McKaylee. Or the last two things I was thinking about. Alone McKaylee, he was great offensively, but defensively, he was not able to be played down the stretch. But then I don't even know why I mentioned that. But Isaiah Johnson, he is obviously the guy the Buffs go to. He's the leading scorer. Throughout the season, it was pretty evident after his 24 second half points against Montana State that Isaiah can score the ball, but I didn't necessarily expect him to be the for sure closer. But tonight he scored 8 of the Buffs' final 12 points, and he was the man who the Buffs relied on. As I highlighted, he missed that free throw, but there was another layup where he missed. There was an official review and things. That went on to determine whose ball it was. It ended up going CSU's ball, and that was another play that shut up down the stretch in the final few minutes of this contest. But Isaiah Johnson, he was a guy, the Buffs relied on him on offense, which was huge, and sets the tone for the rest of the year as far as who they're looking to rely on, whenever they're in clutch moments, which is the fearless Isaiah Johnson, especially in a game where he's playing well. But yeah, outside of that, I really don't have too much to say. The Buffs defense was abysmal. The offense was great. And ultimately, in the home atmosphere for Colorado State, the Rams had just enough, had just enough shots fall their way, had just enough calls go their way, had just enough things go their way as they out-executed Colorado in the 133rd installment of the Rocky Mountain Showdown. I believe that now makes the series 93-40. Overall, or something like that, 90 or 90. I think it's 93-40 in favor of Colorado. So CSU still firmly in that little bro spot. But yeah, doesn't matter if you're technically little bro if you got the most recent win. So yeah, the Buffs they'll look to bounce back against UTSA, the Roadrunners, who are 4-4 and will probably be 4-5 after playing number 12 Alabama tomorrow. But the Buffs meet them at the CU Event Center on a week from now on Saturday, the 13th at 2 p.m. Mountain Time, I believe, on ESPN Plus. The Buffs, I wouldn't necessarily say they even have much to go back to in the drawing board. The offense has been great. Defensively, there's nothing they need to do to change. They just need to communicate better. They need to rotate better. They need to be more attentive to the scouting report. That's what Isaiah Johnson said. That's what Sebastian Ranchik said. That's what Tab Boyle said. I appreciate you guys listening to another 18, 20-minute podcast, whatever length this podcast turned out to be. But, if you guys watch the game, or even if you've watched a handful of games, it's kind of the same thing over and over again. I really just say that in this podcast, this is more of a way to highlight how impressive Colorado State is. I think they're a team that can win a fair amount of games in the Mountain West. Again, after back-to-back March Madness runs. Granted, they had Nick Clifford and Nico Medved was running the show from the last few seasons, but now under Ali Farakamesh. Riding their 14-point per game scorers and their 3-point shooting. That team is very dangerous, especially when they have their crowd behind them at home. That was a very fun environment to be at. But that's pretty much everything I can think of right now. I'll be watching back the games. Given I 100% will have a podcast of rewatching the games this week. Given no unforeseen circumstances, emergencies and tragedies and things like that. I will see you guys next time. And that should be it for this episode of In the Heyday. My name is Oliver Hayes, and I'll see you guys soon. Peace.